What is going on, everybody? Hope you're all having a great Thursday. BobbyFi here with my guys, Eric Sheetsaber and Jake Rohde, better known as Rohde 51. Guys, how you doing today? Jake's joining us from his, on a little break out there in his car, it looks like, and gonna make it work. You know what I mean? We're coming close. I had another little bit of a run last night. How have you been doing? And what are your thoughts sort of on this slate tonight? Small one, so.
Yeah, it's a small one. Back in the car at it again here at work. Reviewed the slate a little bit tonight. It looks like a little small one, but I think there's good ways to get different here. So I think we can get it done.
All right, sounds good to me. How about you, Sheets? How was your night, and what are you looking at tonight?
Well, as you guys know, I did very well yesterday in the afternoon.
Oh, right, you crushed it again. That's right. I forgot to congratulate you. Yeah, can't win them all.
I did really well in the afternoon, and then at night I did not do that well. I was smart enough, and we would talk through this to at least I kind of sniffed out the fishiness of the Giolito play. I got off of that, and I was on Erod, but I ended up getting like too cute and actually faded Scherzer in the end as well. So that's where I kind of went down. But today is very similar. We have kind of a split day today. You have like a little 4 or 5 gamer in the afternoon, and then this one at night is very, very. It's just as compact. I mean, it's only a 7-game slate. I don't think that there's any tremendous pitching, but as we talk about a lot, it's very relative. It's relative to the rest of the slate. So I guess we'll go game by game and see what we can come up with, I suppose.
Yeah, I guess I think we actually only have 6 tonight. But yeah, let's go game by game, see what we can figure out to get creative. Obviously, these are the slates you really want to try and get creative on because they're going to have condensed ownership, and we want to avoid that if possible. All right, Sheets, why don't you pull up your screen and we'll talk about the game by game, and then I'll start with you each time, and then we'll go to Rohde if that works for you.
I'll do it that way. Okay, sure.
Yeah, nice. We can finally get a 3-man recording booth. We've done the live thing, but it's kind of fun to do a little recording here. All right, I'll start with you, Sheets, in this one. I have some interest in Cortez. Are you interested in the pitching in this game at all?
No. Well, okay. Again, in the context of the slate,
right?
I guess it's okay, but I think I have. I think I have better options. Yes, I mean, people like to play pitchers against Seattle, and I guess he's going to project to be decent. I really don't even have an updated thing on Cortez yet. Actually, I do. It doesn't look all that inspiring, actually. So I'm really off of this game. I'm off of Cortez. I'm kind of off of the Yankees too, which at first glance you'd think, wow, it's cool to be off the Yankees on a 5-6 game slate, but maybe other teams are going to be even more popular. But we'll see. I'm kind of off of this game.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, I think the Yankees are going to be really popular. What are your thoughts on this one, Rohde? First of all, are you interested in either pitcher, and what do you think about the hitting in this game?
Cortez is a decent value, I think, for the slate. He is going against Seattle, so you do like that a little bit. The Yankees bats are coming out to be projected pretty close to the top, but I've been kind of getting on and off a few of them, maybe sprinkling them in more so than stacking lately, but I'm not really going to be too heavy on I don't think I'm going to end up too heavy on this game.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, I think that's a good way to get different. I think you could also argue that the Yankees lefties could end up being a little bit of the lower owned side of this situation. Really surprised at some of the Yankee. I mean, I know it didn't work out like in a monstrous way. They were good though. But a lot of the Yankees yesterday weren't as high owned as I sort of thought they would be. Like Stanton was 10% on DraftKings. It was just kind of surprising. I don't expect that to be the case, especially against a lefty. I just want to point out to people that Tyler Anderson pitched in Colorado for years. He's pretty good at limiting damage, I guess you'd say, even though he can get, he does give up the long ball sometimes. And he's not like an awesome pitcher or anything like that. So that if you're looking, but he's okay enough. I think that even playing guys like LeMahieu are going to be a little bit maybe lower owned than in the stack. You can play Odor down at the bottom of the lineup, or even Greg Allen if you wanted to get really different. If you did like the stack, I personally do like the stack a little bit, but I think I'd be more looking for maybe a 2 or a 3-man to try and not do the full Yankee stack thing. And in that 3-man, I probably would then start including one of the lefties like a Rizzo or a Gallo in the lefty spot. Both guys can hit lefties for power, so doesn't worry me. And I think there'll be a little bit of the lower owned side of it, along with the guy who seems to get overlooked because he's been pretty bad all year, but has been a little bit better lately just in terms of actually hitting the ball hard. That's Gleyber Torres. So, but I have the Yankees on my list. I think Stanton. I mean, look, if you ask me, 2 of the most likely guys to hit a home run today, it's going to be Stanton and Judge if I had to make bets. But I do understand Gary Sanchez as well. I love this price on Stanton. They're obviously going to be highly owned, but I'm having a hard time just crossing them off at this point. We'll see as we keep going. This is an interesting spot with Cleveland and Toronto. One of the guys who did win me some money this year has been Tristan McKenzie. That he had the monster game against Kansas City a couple weeks back. He had 32, which was really nice. Had another one, I thought it was against Houston, but maybe it wasn't. He just was a tough matchup, and he's got the stuff to be really good. He's just this does not seem like an ideal time to try and target him against this offense. We do have an extreme pitchers umpire in this game. Obviously, Toronto is going to make some sense. I think Stripling is even kind of interesting. Sheets, where do you stand in this game?
I have Cleveland as one of the I don't know, maybe my 4th best team to go after as far as the hitting goes. But 4th best on a 6-game slate is not particularly intriguing, I guess. So I like Reyes. I like the Ahmed Rosario. I mean, Bobby Bradley's probably really cheap. Roberto Perez, if he gets in. And Jose Ramirez is, all, as you would say, always a good play. I'm not getting to either of the pitching here. I'm not getting to Stripling or McKenzie. I just think I'm being drawn to just a couple of other pitchers. I'm just not going to get to those. And with respect to Toronto, for me, I mean, they remain just really expensive, and it's just kind of hard to get to them. I do have them just on raw, whatever, just, alongside of some other teams as being close to the top, but they're not like that much better than anybody else. I would say maybe they're not even the best. So I'm going to probably be off of Toronto. I might have a little bit of Cleveland, and I'm not going to have any of the pitch.
How about you, Rohde?
Stripling's coming in decent, 8.8K, but there's a few more guys that are better than him. I think he's mid-pack for projection. For the bat side, yeah, Toronto's been. I love Toronto always. I played a lot of them this year, but they're so expensive. You see that you get a good stat going with them, but if a couple of the guys only hit homers and a couple other guys bust, I mean, you're left with nothing on the rest of your lineup. You got to usually pay down for pitching sometimes. On this slate, I don't know if I like the pay down options to get to Toronto bats here, so might be off this game as well.
Interesting. So I think that there's like the huge boom bust path for McKenzie in general. I think this is a really tough matchup for him, even with all the righties, which is what he dominates mostly. I do think you could get a little different with your stack and play like the Gurriel, Dickerson, leaving out Springer feels tough right now. That guy is red hot. He's hitting right now. He looks like the Vlad of their team right now. He's just putting up 20, 30, 40, whatever, every night it feels like. So
do a Toronto outfield stack.
Yeah, I
like Gurriel and Gritchick. Or Dickerson, I mean.
Yeah, I mean, there's different ways to stack it. So it is interesting to me. I like Kirk a little bit better, and when he's in his catcher than I do McGuire. You could include Valera at the minimum cost if you wanted to try and get a little bit different with your stack and save a little bit. There's a lot of ways to go here. I think that Toronto is really interesting. Toronto, it's no shocker. I have Toronto and the Yankees both very highly rated. I'm still deciding what I want to do. I kind of like Sheets' idea with Cleveland. My issue is that I don't like Stripling when he doesn't pitch against the American League East, which unfortunately is the division he's in and much tougher conditions and everything. And also he's been pitching in that little tiny park. I think Stripling is a good pitcher. I still believe that he's not done yet. And he's actually pitched well when he's pitched outside away from Boston, Tampa, and the Yankees. And I don't mind taking a shot on him, especially with the extreme pitchers umpire here. Could benefit him a little bit because he tends to get himself in trouble and not work deep enough into games. So I have mild interest in him. By the end of the day, I'll probably throw one McKenzie lineup in just to feel like, I just believe in the kid's talent, and I think he's got upside in every matchup. This Toronto team, in addition to being really good, doesn't really strike out very much either. So it's not the most exciting time to play him, but I want to try and get different on this slate. I do love Jose Ramirez as a one-off, and I think there is merit to that Cleveland stack where people aren't going to be playing it. I also think we didn't mention enough of it in the other one. And I'm not into to maybe fully stacking Seattle, but I did forget to mention that I do like Mitch Haniger and Ty France at what I expect to be pretty low ownership. Potentially you could even use Toro in there as well. Huge stadium upgrade, obviously, for Seattle. So I feel like Seattle and Cleveland are similar to me, but I probably give a slight edge to Seattle over Cleveland in terms of a mini stack personally, even though I totally get the Cleveland idea. I like Sheets getting different on that one. Let's talk about Cincinnati and Pittsburgh. This is going to be the massive chalk pitcher. It's going to be hard to argue exactly against that in Sonny Gray. Sheets, what are your thoughts here? We've seen Sonny Gray. I mean, we've seen him at times just struggle to stay in games just because it was almost like there was a pitch count and he came back from an injury. And then he always has that nagging arm trouble, sort of like Eduardo Rodriguez. I'm always waiting for him to get pulled in the second inning after he strikes out 6 out of the first 7 or something like that, or in the third inning. But I mean, obviously Sonny Gray is the number 1 pitcher on the slate, right, Sheets?
Yeah, but he stinks.
Oh, okay, I like this. Sheets is
No,
for anybody.
but he is. I mean, again, it's all relative, It's like who's going to be better, he does rates for me to be the top pitcher on the slate, but it's not like he's projecting to be that great, So if I could invent something else, I'd prefer to do something else. But I mean, I really have to squint to find it. But I think I have an idea. But he does rate to be my top value, even relative to his price. He also rates to be 50% owned. And he also correlates with the hitting, which is also going to be really, really chalky, and also is going to be really strong values, starting with, Naquin 2,800, Farmer 3,400, the ghost of Eugenio Suarez 3,600, India 4,700. Well, he's not cheap or whatever. And you can even overpay for Winker if you want to do that. Just maybe that doesn't go quite as highly on. Yeah, Sonny Gray. What I don't think you should do, like I always, is I don't think you should play Sonny Gray with the rest of the Cincinnati guys. I wouldn't want to lay chalk on top of chalk. And I'm not as good as you are with respect to picking the chalk stacks and rearranging them so they're not as chalky. I always end up with the chalky version of it somehow.
It's working out pretty well for you, man. In all fairness.
Yeah, I get it. I get it.
We get our screenshot in our Discord every day. The guy's in the top 3 of something every day.
No, I get it. But no, I'm just saying though that so that's the way I'm going to attack it. I'm saying is that I don't think that I'm going to, in many of my builds that have any type of respect for ownership fade, are going to end up with much Sonny Gray with the Reds. I think, well, like when you were telling me the Yankees will chalk, I just presume the Reds are going to be the chalkiest team. But the other, what about the?
I didn't necessarily mean the Yankees would be the chalkiest. I think that there'll be chalk condensed between these 3 teams, and then actually the first 5 games we're going to have the chalk of the home team in all 5 of those.
What about Crows? Crows somebody to play? You get leverage against the Reds. He's 6,900. You get leverage against the pitchers. Is he terrible or no?
No, I don't think it's a bad play. And I'll tell you, first of all, I don't like taking pitchers against Cincinnati, especially in Cincinnati. They don't strike out. Well, it depends on the lineup they actually released today, but in general, not a huge strikeout upside matchup. They do have a lot of power, and it's a tough stadium to pitch in. But at the same time, I think that Crow, he's been working into the 5th, 6th, and even almost made it into the 7th in his last time out. He does have a fairly short leash. He had a 1-hitter going against Philadelphia. But then you look at the start before, he had 9 Ks and 5 1/3 against San Francisco, which is sort of like weird. His highest Ks coming in this season, mostly in bad strikeout matchups. And this would be one of them. So maybe there's something to that. I am interested mildly in Crow. I don't think that I think it's a long shot kind of a play. I like the leverage against Cincinnati. But it does make me a little nervous. But I mean, look, if it's the BABIP on his side, I think he's got a shot. What are your thoughts on this one, Rohde? How are you looking at this game? I think Cincinnati's going to obviously project well, but who are you looking at playing from this game? Either pitchers and get into hitting.
Yeah, I mean, Cincinnati projects really well. They're up there with the Yanks, like you said. They're probably pretty chalky. As far as playing, I usually get different, like you do, Bobby. We're in the stack where you get different. You can play a couple of the cheaper guys in the outfield, or kind of look and see who's projecting worse, or like a little bit worse on the order. Like I play the 8 hitters, the 9 hitters to get different. A lot of people think you got to play the top 5 guys, so don't always think that, guys. We're playing guys all over the lineup. So I think if you really want to get different on this game, Gray's going to be pretty chalky. I mean, Pittsburgh's got some cheap guys. They've put up some runs. Gray's had some bad numbers. A couple got shelled a couple times here recently. Throw a small pit stack in, or hope for a couple homers on a couple of those guys. If you're MME in something, if you get crazy, it's a smaller slate, so chance a couple of those guys to get different if you want to do a 3-man pit stack, I think. And then, like you said, you could play the other side. You could go with Crow. He's cheap, and I think you can go cheap pitchers if you want to go with a higher up stack today, and you can go with like a Crow at 6.9 and not pay the 9.3 that Sonny Gray is, and you'll save a lot of money and get some bigger bats. And if you want to go that route.
Yeah, so I love the idea. I like what both you guys brought up. I think there is an argument for Crow to get leverage against the field on these small slates, but I think that what I'd be more inclined to do would be to take a couple of these Pittsburgh bats, because not only are you going to get them cheap, you got low ownership, and you do have upside. Sonny Gray will allow the occasional stolen base as well, which maybe if Kevin Newman was leading off, maybe it gives a boost to him, or Castro. Brian Reynolds is a little bit of a spend up, but I think Brian Reynolds is terrific and awesome. And this is like one of the best park upgrades Pittsburgh can get. It's arguably I guess it's the second best hitting park in the National League. So you've got Park, who's, by the way, he's a guy who gets on base. He's a terrific, he has I think he led the minor leagues in pitches per at bat or something like that, some weird stat, in walks or something one of the last 2 years. Cheese mentioned it the other day in one of his things, and I haven't double checked it, but I don't need to double check Cheese very often. Polanco stands out to me, Castro and Park, along with maybe Nagowski. Not necessarily all 4 of them, but maybe all of them. I think I'm more leaning though towards using them to fill in some other spots where I'm not using Gray. I do like the Pittsburgh side of this. Sheets, any thoughts on the Pittsburgh bats? Because they're
I do have some thoughts, and it's going to stray. And you know what? Sometimes I pick the really, really big slates to stray. And it just when it hits me. So I apologize if this makes it a little bit longer, but I did have a couple of just overall theory thoughts I wanted to bring up just because you brought it up this way. So one of the things that I speak about with Bobby sometimes, and just overall in general, is so I run a hedge fund full time, right? That's what I've been doing. That's where I made the most of my money. And one of the things that I'm extremely good at is gauging, what types of people to listen to on certain things, like who's really good at certain types of analysis. Like I have different guys that I ask for their opinions on certain stocks for no other reason than because I think they're contrarian indicators. Like if someone likes this, I know to do the opposite. Like I have other people that are really, really good at analyzing particular types of situations, and to be able to manage all that and know who's good at this, who's good at this. Like if I have a guy who's never likes IBM, and all of a sudden likes IBM, I'm going to give that guy a little more credit than the guy that always likes IBM or whatever it is. And to be able to kind of live your life intellectually in that matrix is pretty powerful sometimes. So I say that with background, because every single slate, it seems, when we go over, it doesn't matter the 2-game slate or a 75-game slate, I always tell you that I like Pittsburgh, right? Every single time. Like second best stack, third best stack, and second best stack. I'll just throw it out there. On a 7-game slate, I had Pittsburgh ranked 11th today. So
6-game or 2, so it's even worse.
Right. So I'm just saying that the same process I go through that always ends up keeping me on Pittsburgh gives me 0 Pittsburgh, basically today. So I will just kind of leave that out there with you before we go too crazy playing Pittsburgh. And I don't, as just something to put in your put in your analysis tools.
Oh, I appreciate that. That's helpful. I mean, it is interesting. They always pop for you, and they're not at all today, especially because you're okay with getting off of the Gray massive chalk. So that is relevant. For what it's worth, this is a very small sample size of at bats, but Brian Reynolds, 4 for 8 with 3 extra base hits, 2 home runs against Sonny Gray in short. But Brian Reynolds, I swear, this guy is like the most underrated player in baseball. I don't even understand. I feel bad for him that he's in Pittsburgh. If this guy was playing anywhere, somehow this guy ended up in Colorado, he'd be hitting like 45 home runs and hitting 330. And stealing 30 bases as well. Like, he's just a monster. I still have interest in a little bit in the Pittsburgh guys, but I like Sheets' points, and even the fact they come out 11 out of 12 for you, it's pretty telling. Okay, here's the other. I mean, the thing is, I know we're saying that these are all chalk, but the truth is they can all be somewhat chalk. Like, I just mean double-digit ownership, I think, on all these main stacks. And I think it's going to be spread out amongst them. KC and Chicago White Sox, I don't think that there's any way I'm going to play any pitchers in this game. The White Sox bats are going to stand out as they continue to against lefties. They haven't been as good lately in general. Give or take 1 or 2 good nights. Sheets, what are you doing in this game? I have a feeling you're going to talk a lot about Kansas City. Just a guess.
It's so funny that you say that. I don't like a shred of Kansas City.
What are you going to play today?
Well, I already said that.
I love it.
Is probably the top, whatever. But I'm probably not. I'm getting to them.
Okay.
Getting to them. Christ's sake.
No, I love it. Are you kidding me? This is a compliment for me. My biggest issue with people who talk about stuff is, yeah, we should talk about the possible plays and stuff, but then we should talk about what we're actually doing. Like, we want to be as transparent as possible. Well, I love it. I love it.
I have the White Sox as one of the top 4. Right. I had the Reds as number 2. I had the Indians as number 4. And I have the White Sox as number 3. Now, in fairness, I shouldn't say that. I do have KC number 5, but they're way, way down below, as far as I'm concerned, below Cleveland, like right now. Just the way it is. So I do like the White Sox. I don't like any of the pitching. The White Sox being, I don't know exactly who I want to play. I think I want to play the Sebi Zavala guy, right? I think I want to play Andrew Vaughn, Cesar Hernandez, then probably one of the good guys. Then probably, not that they're bad, but then probably I'd love to get some Abreu if I could, and Anderson or whatever it is. But it's interesting. I want to examine what you said a little bit more. This idea that while everybody can't be chalk, everybody can in a way. So, but if you have like the Yankees, let's analyze this. Yankees, Reds, White Sox, Astros, I guess would be the other one. I think that
Blue Jays too.
What's that?
Blue Jays too.
And Blue Jays. So
yeah.
I think if you're going to really spread it out among those 5 teams, I don't think it's going to concentrate any one place.
Okay.
I don't think it will.
I would tend to agree with that actually, but I still think that you can still get 15 to 20% ownership roughly on those guys spread out. You know what I mean? Probably one falls a little more by the wayside. Probably maybe the Blue Jays because the pricing. But I hear you. I'm very surprised you're not interested in KC here. Like, I honestly, that's your 2 teams that you love to talk about, usually KC and Pittsburgh, and we got a short slate and them at lower ownership, and maybe not too low ownership in KC's case. But how about you, Rohde here? This feels like a good spot to get a little different and play the KC side to me as well. I like the Chicago side as well. I like both sides of this game. But KC has some certain standouts. They hit 3 home runs, and the last time they faced Keuchel 10 days ago. There's some power against a guy who Keuchel's thing was he used to never give up power. He's given up 9 home runs in his last 5 starts, and those are only 5-6 innings outings. So you're looking at a guy who's given up like 3, almost 4 per 9 innings in that stretch. And overall this year has been giving up a lot more hard contact. Where you stand on either? Are you interested in either pitcher? And then talk about both sides of the hitting. What your thoughts are?
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to get to the pitchers on this game. White Sox do interest me a little bit. They're mid-level projection wise. Talking about KC a little bit more though, looking at their prices a little bit, they've actually come down a little bit. I mean, you get some cheap guys in that stack. They're quite cheap. Even Perez probably one of the better catchers on the slate. Normally 4.6K, Merrifield's down to 4.2. So they've been picking it up a little bit, like you said. They had a good outing last time against Ketchel, and they could interest me here by the end of the day. And it's a great stack to get different. If you're MMEing guys, definitely get some KC, so I do like them.
Yeah, I think that like I'm into the Perez and Merrifield. I think are actually going to be popular. I think Perez is pretty clearly the number one catcher. I would put him ahead of Gary Sanchez, and I think Witt is probably the best second base option. Not considering all things considered. I also think you can fill out a cheap Hunter Dozier. You can play the Michael Taylor, probably at 2.3, probably batting sixth or potentially even like fifth today. And even if you want to get further with that value, you got Emmanuel Rivera. But the guy who I would play to get different, because I think there will be some KC stacks, would be people don't seem to play Santana. Historically good numbers power-wise against lefties. And I don't think that I think he would be an interesting play. And I think like on FanDuel, you could play he and Perez together if you wanted to get really different, because I do think you have to try and get as different as possible on these slates, unless you're playing a very, very, less than 100-person tournament. Where do you stand on the White Sox today against Lynch? Lynch has actually pitched pretty well in real life. I was impressed by his last outing, even though he didn't put up fantasy points against them. That was at Toronto. That's a tough matchup. And he's actually been like much better than I feel like he gets credit for in the last two, well, especially in the last two starts.
Yeah, I've been off the White Sox a little bit lately. Luckily, they haven't been doing very good either. A couple of guys are really expensive. They are, their run total is quite high. I think it's like 5.6 right now up there total, 5.5 or something.
Yep.
So they're gonna be owned a little bit too. So if you think Lynch comes in, a good play, you could go there. Or a bad play. I mean, sorry about that. But he's pitching, like you said, pretty good. So I would say I might be staying off the White Sox. If I really want to get different, I'd go with, KC. I still like the KC side on this one. I don't think I'm gonna get to any White Sox.
I think it's interesting. I do like I don't know that I'm actually going to end up playing Lynch. I don't think I would do that against this team exactly, because they're just too many good righties. But I do think like the White Sox stack, there are ways to get different with it, playing Vaughn towards the bottom of the order. Adam Engel might be a little bit lower. He'll have medium ownership, but then you've got Eloy. You can't use all your outfield spots, and then Anderson, Abreu. I do have the White Sox on my list. I think this whole game is very interesting, but I'm sort of leaning a little bit more the KC route, especially if we get lower ownership, and we'll have to wait to see, more on that a little bit later today. But right now, I do think KC is a really good stack on this slate, and I like them even more as a 3 or 4 man as usual, because as bad as Keuchel has been at times, he still gets through 6 innings and doesn't walk he's had some bad walk games, but in general, he hasn't like gotten blown all the way up like crazy. So I probably will pick 3 bats, maybe 4.
Dude, you're picking this up here. So I launched FanDuel just to see what if the early slate, the 12 o'clock, everything started. I see I'm winning all this. I didn't even realize this. I came in first and second in the League of Legends tournament on FanDuel. First and second by myself, it looks like.
This is incredible. I mean, what the hell is going on with this guy? This is nuts.
I mean, it's only $1,000 for first.
Still, it's awesome.
But whatever, for 2-cent buy-in, whatever it is, let's go.
Yeah, beautiful, man. That's awesome. Great stuff. That's really, really cool. Please share that in the Discord, because I think people will get a kick out of it for sure.
Yep.
That's awesome. All right, Minnesota and Houston. We just got done with our little brief Houston series in LA here. Valdez and Jax. I think Valdez stands out as being an excellent pitching option. I actually think Griffin Jax is a decent pitcher, and he's going to be a good pitcher. But he's not there yet, and we don't really know what he's going to. Actually, we don't really know what he'll be in the major leagues entirely. He's had made six career starts, but I do think he's got talent anyway. With that said, I expect Houston to be somewhat popular and Valdez to be owned. Sheets, what are you doing with pitching, and then take us into hitting?
Yeah, I have Valdez as my second best pitcher, and I have Houston as my first best stack. I have Houston rated the best. Brantley, Diaz, Tucker, Alvarez, and Altuve would be my group. Yeah, that's where I'm at.
Yep, it makes sense to me. I mean, they've got the prices are right. The plays are right. Talk about a good outfield to play. I mean, Alvarez, Tucker, and Brantley, and you could do it fairly cheaply on all of those spots. So I understand on the Valdez thing. I do think the get weird thing I might do is in the large field in the million, the lottery or whatever. I will throw Griffin Jackson to one lineup because I just think getting really, really weird on these slates is a really, necessary to win those giant field GPPs. Now, I'm not going to put it in my 762 lineup, but I will put it in my other ones. What about you? Where do you stand on this game, Rohde?
Yeah, Valdez will probably be in my lineup. The Houston stack looks pretty good. The run total's up there. They're projected pretty well. They do got, like you said, a couple cheap outfield plays as well. That outfield's stacked tonight, I think, man. There's so many good outfield plays, but it's been like that a lot lately. Altuve's projected probably the best second baseman. I know you talked Merrifield was up there, but there's a lot of good second basemen today too. So another guys that gets usually low owned in this stack, Elle, batting third usually. Oh, he's a guy that's been, hits a lot of gets a lot of good hits, scores some runs in that mix of that batting order. So don't sleep on him if you are stacking this team. Even the catcher, if Maladano gets in there, he's super cheap to get that stack up there as well. So it can be a good stack tonight. I think you can get different with it as well.
Yeah, and that's what I love that we're talking about. Like, I think that's one of the things that I keep trying to stress to people. Like, you can really get different with your stacks, and it's interesting because Gurriel, as far as a real hitter goes, this guy's an all-star. I mean, he's hitting 320. You know what I mean? And he's got a chance to hit 20 home runs this year. Like, that's enough for me. He's in the past, he's always been the low home run guy. I always liked you could stack Houston and skip Gurriel because there were so many good first basemen. But it's a small slate. If Gurriel does in fact come in lower owned, and he does tend to be the lowest owned part of this stack. I do think he's a good way, not just to get different, but just I mean, it's not going to get crazy different, but I do think he's interesting. I also think Aledmus Diaz as a saver that you can use at first or third. You can play him at third and Gurriel at first and use him as a value saver down at the bottom. I think that's kind of interesting, as well as Robo Garcia if you want to play the punch shortstop game. So those would be the ways I think you can get different. I like the stack, and we'll sort of, we'll revisit our favorites at the end, but this is our first look thing. So we're all just going through it here. Now we get into a spot where I don't know what I'm going to do because Sheets, I'll start with you on this one. There is massive upside every time Touki Toussaint takes the mound, and there is massive downside. And we saw it in his last game. He was 3 innings cruising through with 5 Ks through 3 and he'd given up 1 hit so far. And then all of a sudden the wheels come off, which is going to happen with him sometimes. This is a right-handed lineup, which he's very good against righties, but it's a right-handed lineup that has good, patient, smart, work the count hitters for the most part, especially in Arenado, Goldschmidt, Molina. I'm sort of struggling what to do here because I do like Touki, and I think I'm curious where the ownership will end up on him. Sheets, what do you think about Touki? And are you interested in any Wade LeBlanc or the Atlanta stack?
You almost got to what I wanted to do. I think I want to play St. Louis.
Okay.
But I like both. I like both Toussaint and I like St. Louis. I have this idea that Toussaint's going to be really chalky though.
It might be. I'm not sure where the ownership's going to be.
And just as of my numbers, I mean, I have like all these teams that are just below my top 4. That being, KC, St. Louis, and then the Yankees. As far as values goes, and I just see that St. Louis rates to be the lowest owned of all of them. So I don't know. Maybe I'm hallucinating, but that's kind of what I'm looking at right now. Is that if I'm going to play, for example, like Gray, and let's just say I want to play Gray and Valdez for somehow, or like two really good pitchers, I got to get off the board somewhere. So I think St. Louis is going to be the place I do that. But as far as just like pure, who's a good play, I do think that that Toussaint. What is it? Are they going to be? Is he my third best pitcher? Yeah, probably.
Yeah, I certainly can get behind Toussaint as the third best pitcher. I also think there's, like you said, there's definitely upside on the other side of this. What are you looking at in this game, Rohde?
Yeah, I got him coming in as like the fourth best pitcher, but I think you guys have Stripling a little lower than Toussaint, I'm guessing. But so yeah, it's not a bad stack. There's some cheaper guys on the St. Louis side, I know. But I mean, it takes up your outfield spot, like Carlson and O'Neill. They've been, doing well too. I like the Toussaint call. I think if you're gonna do a star and then a scrub, he's probably gonna get some ownership because of that, like Gray and him combo or Valdez and him combo. So, I do like it though. But the Atlanta stack too, on the other side, they've been hitting the ball lately. They've been doing well. That one day I stacked them though, they got 6 runs and just stopped. Like first 2 innings, they got 6 runs. And then the rest of the game, they just disappeared.
Yep.
And man, I thought that was going to be a big day, and they were just putting up runs right there in the first 2. But yeah, they definitely been doing well. So I do like that Atlanta stack as well there. So
yeah, I think that like guys like Solaire is going to be one of the chalky outfielders. I think today at 3.3, it makes plenty of sense to me. Get him versus a lefty. It seems like Atlanta just all St. Louis is throwing out as lefties these days. Not a terrible home run record for LeBlanc this season. So maybe I'm a little bit less on this game, less on the Atlanta side than I should be. Again, it's a small slate. I'm going to try and dial into just a couple stacks that I end up wanting by the end of the day. And as of right now, I don't have Atlanta as one of them. LeBlanc also doesn't give up stolen bases, which I think matters. Same thing, Molina behind the plate too is going to make it even harder. But I'm open to looking a little deeper into Atlanta, but mostly I would look at them as one-offs in Riley, Swanson, Duvall, and Solaire. That's sort of the way I'm approaching it. I don't mind never mind if anybody wants to play Freddie Freeman. What did you say about St. Louis, Rohde?
I mean, they got a couple cheap, like good players in the outfield spots.
Oh yeah, the
so
outfield
O'Neill,
spots. Yeah.
Carlson, those guys you can get in a stack, but you're gonna Bader, I mean, the thing is their infield guys are expensive. So, I'd probably either do a 5-man or probably off of them.
Yeah.
Because outfield's so stacked.
Rohde, talk to me more about that, and Bobby, you too, because I get a little confused sometimes. When I'm thinking of playing a guy like in the outfield, you like a Carlson, for example. You both sometimes say, well, you don't want to take up an outfield spot, with something like that. But yet other times when I want to play like an expensive guy in the outfield, I sometimes hear, well, there's so much good value you could play in the outfield, So like what? So I could. When do you play Carlson in the outfield because he's the best play, and when do you not play Carlson in the outfield because you don't want to waste an outfield spot?
Well, I don't think we're saying that he's necessarily the best play. I mean,
no, but I'm just saying, let's say he was. Let's say that he's.
Well, if he was, then he would be an awesome play at 3K. The problem is you have good spend up and spend downs in the outfield. So Solaire versus Carlson, I would prefer Solaire just in a vacuum if I didn't have any ownership. Tyler O'Neill versus Solaire, I would take Tyler O'Neill. I'm sorry, I would take Solaire. And then you have all the other guys who you could go to, Naquin, which we mentioned earlier. I do think a couple guys from this game though are some of the good value. I think Polanco we talked about earlier as good as a reasonable value, and to get off the chalk, super value in the outfield to leverage against Sonny Gray. And then but the spend ups like today in the outfield, like the Yankees, for example, they're it depends on how you're prioritizing. Do we want to spend up on the outfield, then pay down on the infield? Or do you want to use guys like Arenado and Goldschmidt? And then the problem is if you use Arenado and Goldschmidt, that means you're not playing guys like Vlad. And I like Vlad better than those guys, even though that's why I sort of agree with the stacking or leaving it alone from those. Like I wouldn't play a one-off. It's not the worst idea, by the way, to play from a game theory standpoint, to play a one-off of Arenado or Goldschmidt. But I think that I could see this going really wrong for Tukey, and I could see it going really well for him. So I sort of like the idea of stacking or fading, but that is a good question. It's not something that has a clear, direct answer. I think it's really slate dependent. Today, I think these are two of the better value options in the outfield. The problem is I don't think that they're the best value in the outfield, and there's other guys I could spend in many different directions that don't include Carlson and O'Neill. But I do think that they're definitely strongly in play. I just don't think that they're as good as Solaire, for example, or I like the idea of getting really low owned with Polanco, and I like Naquin. I don't mind Shogo if I'm going to make a 5-man Cincinnati stack. There's just other guys you could spend down on, or there's other guys you could spend just a little bit more on, or a lot more on, like a little bit more on, like the Houston guys, and then you could spend a lot more on guys like the Toronto and New York guys. That's I don't know if
I agree.
Question. Go ahead.
Yeah, I agree too, Bobby. Like that's where I was kind of leaning to. You can pay out for the Toronto guys in the outfield. You got the Yankee guys in the outfield. I don't mind taking like an O'Neill or like a Carlson. You could do like you're saying, cheats like a one-off, but then you're already paying. So Carlson's 3K, right? And then you could get like 3 point, a little bit more. You could get Tucker, you could get Brantley as a one-off or something out of that Houston game. But then you also got like really good values. Like you talk Cleveland, you like them. They got 2K guys coming in the outfield. You got Park coming in the outfield for Pittsburgh. So that 3K price is kind of odd, I think, for when you're trying to stack it up. You might as well either go to the 2K options, which there's a lot of them in the outfield 2K option. So that's that value we're talking about, I think. Or you want to pay up and get a little, pay another 1,000, get some of those bigger hitters or the upper 3K or upper 4K a little bit instead of going with the Carlson or O'Neill route. But they could get loaner ownership too with the higher other teams that people are going to stack with outfield players.
Yeah, I hear you. All right, after going through it, I guess I'll start off, and then Sheets, you can tell us yours, and then we'll go to you, Rohde, for the whole slate. I have 4 pitchers that I'm going to be mixing in: Valdez, Cortez, Gray, Tukey, and then I might throw a Stripling or a Crow in a large field GPP, or McKenzie in a large field GPP. But I think mostly those 4 are going to be Valdez, Cortez, Gray are my favorites. I like Tukey, but I think there is volatility there. I think for my stacks, Toronto, maybe pieces of Cincy, but I think they're going to be really popular. And I think I'd prefer to try and get up to Toronto, who seems to be hard to get up to, so people avoid it. And then I like the KC stack. I also have some interest in Chicago, but I think that Toronto might be my main stack. And then using some of the value we talked about, be it like Solaire, Carlson, O'Neill, Naquin, Polanco, Park, those guys, and maybe spending down on my outfield and stacking the infield using one outfielder from Toronto. And because I want to try and get different, if Toronto is going to be owned, that outfielder may not be George Springer or Teoscar Hernandez. I may just play Gurriel. That's or I might even go Corey. I'm sorry, you do have Dickerson's value also. So Gurriel and Dickerson for Toronto, I could play that and get a little bit off the board if I was in their stacks. So that's the way I'm sort of approaching the slate. Favorite one-offs real quick: Whit Merrifield, Salvador Perez, Cesar Hernandez, who we didn't talk much about in the White Sox. Alvarez, Solaire, Stanton, Judge, Ramirez, Reynolds. Those are, I actually do think I might prioritize trying to get a lineup and make sure to get Reynolds into one lineup. Brian Reynolds, I really like him. Go ahead, Sheets.
Oh yeah, and again, just the usual caveats. I mean, I hate to, but who I like might not be who I play. It's to see how the builds actually kind of work out and what ownership looks like and how it all comes together. But like in a vacuum, Gray and Valdez are my top 2 pitchers. Then Tukey would be third. And with respect to stacks, Houston is my favorite. And then there's White Sox, Cincinnati, and Cleveland. And the only one-off, I guess, I'm looking at that we didn't even mention at some point. Didn't mention pretty much all. You just mentioned Cesar Hernandez. Nothing really to add. I mean, we talked about Andrew Vaughn, I presume, and Diaz from Houston. Mm-hmm. Just the guys that are part of the good stacks, I guess, are the good values also, apparently. Yeah,
absolutely. All right, how about you, Rohde? What are you leaning towards?
Yeah, I agree on a lot of that. I like Valdez today. I don't know if I'll get to Gray. I think I'm going to pay down for either one of those pitchers we talked about, Toussaint, or maybe even get to Stripling a little bit. we'll have to see. It's a toss up between those two. I do like him a little bit more than you guys, but I
I
do
think I
also
like him
like.
too. I think I should have been, sorry. I think I should have him in my picture mix. Go ahead. Go ahead, man. Sorry.
Yeah, I gotta have him in my pitcher mix, but like I really do starting to like that those guys. I'm looking at their price tags. You guys were talking about Cleveland a little bit, and I'm hoping they pop up a little bit more on projections. But some of those guys are coming in, those outfield guys I said that were 2K. A couple of those guys I like. I do like the Park, like we said. A couple of those guys at value. If you do play the Toronto stack, you're going to need some real cheap guys too, unless you do get different there. I mean, Dickerson's 3.2, so he's another guy I'd rather play over those St. Louis guys. That Toronto stack. So I'm right there with you guys. I do like Perez as a hitter today. Alvarez on the Houston stack. I think he gets one today for a home run. That and Perez, I like that combo. So
I like it.
some KC guys.
Makes a lot of sense to me. All right, guys. Well, I will be with you at 6 Eastern. I don't know who's going to be with me. Sheets, are you with me?
Yeah, I'll be there.
Yeah, I thought so. I just want to make sure. And then the other one, it's gonna be too late for you guys to do this now, but good luck to everybody on the live slate, and let's go get them tonight, guys. Rohde, thanks again for everything you've been coming and joining us. You've been keeping our Discord on fire, and it's been a lot of fun. So we really appreciate having you alongside here. It's really, really been nice. So anyway, good luck to everybody out there. We'll hopefully see you at the top tonight.